I wanted to talk about some frequently asked questions regarding the legislative process here in California. For those who aren't familiar, I tried to put together a number of questions and answers for a lot of the queries that I find are most often posed regarding the legislative process in California. So let's get started. When does the legislature's regular session convene? At noon on the first Monday in December in the even numbered year, such as December 5th, 2022. How long is the legislature's regular session? 2 years, like the United States Congress. When does the 2 year session concluded? At midnight on November 30th of the following even numbered year. What's a special session? The Constitution says that on extraordinary occasions, the governor by proclamation may cause the legislature to assemble in special session. How many legislators are needed to conduct official legislative business? A majority of the membership of a committee or the floor constitutes a quorum. Do legislative committee hearings have to be open to the public? Yes. The official proceedings of each house and their committees must be open and public. In addition, every meeting of each house and standing committee or subcommittee where any vote is to be taken or amendments made to a bill must be public. Can a member of the public make audio or visual recordings of legislative proceedings? Yes. They have the right to record by audio or video means any and all parts of the proceedings and to broadcast or otherwise transmit them. But the legislature can adopt reasonable rules regulating those recordings. Next, is the legislature allowed to meet in closed session? Yes, there are actually four major reasons provided for the legislature conduct closed sessions. For example, involving personnel decisions, for safety and security of legislators and their staff, to meet with legal counsel to discuss pending litigation, and for the individual party caucuses in amongst the two parties in the two houses. Is there a time limit before an introduced bill can be acted upon by legislators? Yes. With the exception of a budget bill, no regular session bill can be heard or acted upon until the 31st day it is in print unless that requirement is dispensed with a three-fourths vote. How many readings of a bill are required? A bill must be read by its title on 3 separate days in each house before that measure can be passed, unless the requirement is dispensed with by a two-thirds vote. What is the minimum vote required for a bill to be passed by either house? The Constitution says that no bill may be passed unless a majority of the membership of each house concurs. How long must a bill be available to legislators and the public on the internet before it can be voted on? At least 72 hours before the final vote of that measure. Are there bill introduction limits on legislators? Yes, current House rules provide that Assembly members can introduce a maximum of 50 bills per session, and senators, under their House rules, can introduce a maximum of 40 bills per session, absent a rule waiver. When do regular session bills normally take effect? The effective date is normally January 1 of the following year after the date of enactment, unless it is one of the bills, there are four of them, that take effect immediately upon chaptering. When do special session bills normally take effect? After 90 days upon adjournment. So it's on the 91st day after adjournment of the special session do special session bills take effect, unless they're one of the four that take effect immediately upon chaptering. Are there any bills that take immediate effect? Yes, they are statutes calling elections, statutes providing for tax levies, statutes for providing for appropriations for the usual current expenses of the state, and urgency statutes. They all go into effect upon their enactment. How is an urgency bill voted on? A roll call vote is actually required for both the urgency clause itself as well as the bill, and that requires a two-thirds vote of each house, but not at the committee level. Can a bill contain multiple subjects? No, a bill can embrace only one subject, which is expressed in its title. Must a California statute be reenacted when it's amended? Yes, the Constitution provides a section of a statute may not be amended unless the section is reenacted as amended. Must a bill be signed by the governor to become a statute? First, a bill becomes a statute if it is signed by the governor. Also, if the governor does not sign or veto a bill within the required time period, then the bill will become a statute, the so-called pocket signature rule. How is a bill vetoed? The governor may veto a bill by returning it with any objections to the House of Origin without his signature. Can a veto of the governor be overridden by the legislature? Yes. If each house passes the bill by roll call vote entered in the Daily Journal with 2/3 of the membership concurring, then the bill becomes a statute and is transmitted to the Secretary of State and chaptered. How long does the legislature have to consider a veto? According to the joint rules, the legislature may consider a governor's veto for only 60 days, not counting the days when the legislature is in a joint recess. Can a bill introduced in the first year of the session be considered in the second year of the session? Yes, so long as that bill is passed by the House of Origin by January 31st of the second calendar year. These are called carryover bills. In the second year of the session, can bills be considered on or after September 1? Only certain bills are. 1, bills calling an election, those that provide for a tax levy, those that provide for an appropriation for the usual current expenses of the state, those that contain an urgency clause, or those that have been vetoed by the governor. 5 types. Does the governor have line item veto authority in the state? Yes, California's governor may reduce or eliminate one or more items of appropriation while the governor approves the other portions of a bill. How is an appropriation vetoed? The governor must append to the bill a statement of the items reduced or eliminated with the reasons for the governor's action. Can a line item veto be overridden? Yes. Items reduced or eliminated must be separately reconsidered and may be passed over the governor's veto in the same manner as bills, a 2/3 vote of each house. How are the legislature's committees determined? The legislature or either house may by resolution provide for the selection of committees necessary for the conduct of its business. In addition, each house must appoint standing committees as the business of the house may require, and the committee, the number of members, and the manner of selection to be determined by the rules of each house also takes place in those resolutions. When is the governor required to submit the proposed budget to the legislature? Within 10 days of each calendar year, i.e. by January 10th. What must be included in the governor's budget? It must include an explanatory message and a budget for the ensuing fiscal year, and it must contain itemized statements for recommended state expenditures and estimated state revenues. Does the governor's budget have to be introduced in the legislature? Yes. The budget bill is required to be introduced immediately in each house by the persons chairing the committees that consider the budget. When must the legislature pass the budget? It must do so by midnight on June 15th of every year. Does the legislature have to pass a balanced budget? Yes. In fact, the governor must propose a balanced budget and the legislature must enact a balanced budget. This is pursuant to provisions of the Constitution. What are the consequences of not passing a budget on time? Then legislators will lose their salary until the budget has been passed. What is the vote requirement for a bill that makes a general fund appropriation? It's 2/3 unless it's an appropriation for the public schools, or if it's the budget bill, a budget bill junior, or a budget trailer bill containing an appropriation. In those cases, a majority vote is only required. Are the budget bills junior and budget trailer bills part of the budget? Yes, they are. Other bills providing for the appropriations related to the budget bill consist of bills identified as related to the budget in the budget bill that is passed by the legislature. What is the difference between general and special or local statutes? The California Constitution in Article 4, Section 16 says all laws of a general nature have uniform operation, and that a local or special statute is invalid in any case if a general statute can be made applicable. Is the legislative calendar officially adopted each year? Yes, and most of the dates are set forth at the start of the 2-year session pursuant to Joint Rule 51. Can the legislature be recalled from its joint recess? Yes. The legislature may be recalled from a joint recess and reconvene in regular session if one of 3 specified conditions is met. Is there a deadline for bills being introduced? Yes, it's usually the 3rd Friday in February, and it's set forth in Joint Rule 54. What are 2-year bills? Bills that are introduced in the first year of the regular session and passed by the House of Origin on or before the January 31st constitutional deadline are called carryover bills under the joint rules. Now, immediately after January 31st, bills introduced in the first year of the regular session that do not become carryover bills are automatically returned to the chief clerk of the Assembly or the Senate secretary. Now, this rule does not apply to constitutional amendments. Are deadlines established for bills to move through the legislative process? Yes. Joint Rule 61 deadlines are observed by the Senate and the Assembly absent a rule suspension. Is prior notice given on when committees meet and consider measures? Yes. Notice of a hearing on a bill by the committee of first reference in each house, or the notice of an informational hearing, is required to be published in the daily file at least 4 days prior to the scheduled hearing. Otherwise, notice is published in the daily file with 2 days prior notice to the hearing. What is engrossing and enrolling? When a bill is amended, the printed form of the bill is proofread by staff to assure that the amendments were inserted properly. After being proofread, the bill is called correctly engrossed, and it's deemed to be in its proper form. Whenever a bill passes both houses of the legislature, it's ordered enrolled, and in enrollment, the bill is again proofread for accuracy and then delivered to the governor for final action. Do committees require a motion and a second prior to voting on a measure? In the Senate, to vote on a bill only requires an initial motion or other legislative measure. However, in the Assembly, a motion and a second are required before a legislative measure can be voted on by those committee members. Can legislators change their votes? Well, the Assembly allows its members to add or change votes after the vote has been announced, so long as the final vote has not been impacted. The Senate, however, does not allow this, except for the President pro tem and the Republican leader, so long, again, as the final outcome of a bill is not affected. And this is pursuant to Senate Rule 44. Do legislators have immunity for their statements on legislation? The legislative privilege, which is codified in the California Civil Code at Section 47, applies to statements that are made in official proceedings. And finally, how many options does the governor have regarding a bill on his or her desk? The governor has 3 possible actions. The governor may sign a bill into law and thereby make it a statute. The governor may veto the bill, or the governor may allow a law or a bill to become law without the governor's signature. This we call the pocket signature rule. So those are my frequently asked questions and answers to the California legislative process.